Welcome back to Share Truth Apply Scripture. I'm Jordan Shambly, joined by Cedra Sarton, and Hannah Harrison is with us today. We're talking about the issue of sexual abuse in the church and a lot of the issues surrounding that as well. So this doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of things that go into setting up an environment where this is even possible, and that's what we're going to talk about a little bit in this segment. By the way, if you want to listen to last segment, feel free to go to engagemagazine.net. Click at the top. There's a button that says radio. You can listen to all of our episodes there, and let us know what you think. EngageFAQ at AFA.net. I'm sorry. I tripped over that a little bit. That's our email, EngageFAQ at AFA.net.
Do you want me to say it for you?
Yes, please.
You got to know. I think you got it right then.
I'm good. So let's go into this. We have a lot of statistics here. You brought some statistics because you've done a lot of research on this, kind of detailing sort of the depth of this issue and what, to me, this catches me by surprise too, because when I go to church, my church, the churches that I've been to in the past, it seems like such an unlikely place for any of this to happen. Everybody is respectable, dressed up, looking like, they're just shining pillars of moral behavior.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, and this is just humans, this is just reality of being human. Under the surface, could be anything, honestly. Right. And I don't mean to set it up to where you should be suspicious of everyone.
Oh, no.
But I think we should be honest, and I think we should understand that even in our own hearts, we have the potential and to act in ways that are horrible. And apart from the grace of Christ and His work in our lives, we would be that way. To one extent or another. And so let this not be a reason to be fearful of others or fearful of your own heart necessarily, but grateful for the work of God in your life. So let's go into some of this, examine these a little bit. So what are we looking at here?
Some kind of heartbreaking and overwhelming statistics. But the first one I have is that 60% of children that are sexually abused, they will not ever tell anyone what has happened.
Yeah.
And that's kind of overwhelming. Like we said last segment, a lot of them don't know how to process it. A lot of them are afraid, like, I'm going to disappoint my parents, or this is a good person in the church. How can I say this, what they've done to me?
Like you said, they can't process it, though. I mean, how
exactly.
How could they
some of them
understand
don't know exactly what has happened to them.
Exactly.
Something may seem off, but if they're young, that young, they don't understand what is happening. They can't comprehend.
Exactly, yeah.
And also, which goes into another one, is 90% of children, 90% know their abuser.
Wow.
And they know they have built a trusting relationship with this person. And as we've talked about before, maybe it's a Sunday school person, maybe it's a pastor. There are several topics, maybe it's a youth pastor. The Houston Chronicle, I believe it was the beginning of this year, came out with that article that talked about, which is kind of what brought it to light, a list of people in the Southern Baptist Convention who had been, brought forward with this terrible crime. But that's something also to take into consideration, because as we mentioned, if they trust, say it is a Sunday school teacher, which I've heard a lot of, this is somebody that they've spent every Sunday with. This is somebody that's poured Jesus, technically, into them. And
I mean, so many churches, and in the church that I grew up in, it was a very loving, trusting environment where not just the children, but the adults in the church were you want to be welcoming, of course, but they were very quick to really welcome someone in and start letting them do certain jobs in the church, which is, you want them to be able to do that, but then like putting them in positions over classrooms and things like that when they join. I knew a guy who, he and his wife, and it wasn't the same situation, but he was put working with us in our youth group, and no one had any idea that he was having suicidal thoughts until one night he killed himself. You just don't know. I mean, like, I'm not saying that he never hurt any of us, and he was always good to us. But like, you got to know your people that you're putting in charge of classrooms. I mean, maybe let them help somebody, but you got to really know the people.
Yeah, and I think that there might be a biblical model for this, and I don't have that prepared to talk about. But I think looking at how the early church handled positions of authority, and I know
Right.
that we live in modern times where we don't just have a pastor and then elders and then deacons like the early church did. We have Sunday school teachers, we have custodians, we have all sorts of things right now. But there is, in putting these people in positions of authority or responsibility, I think, and I know there's a lot of churches that do this, requires a lot of prayer.
Right.
But also requires that you know this person, you know that they're walking with the Lord, and and they're in constant fellowship with the body. And I think that's one of the things that's missing here. And we'll go into a little bit of this, how this environment could even be set up where these things happen.
Right.
But one of the things that I think is a lack of actual fellowship between believers, where one believer and another believer may know each other at a shallow surface level, but they don't ever cross that threshold.
Right. And I think that's where discipleship comes in
Yeah.
a lot. And I think, I know in a church I've been in before, that's something that kind of lacks. I think we could dig deeper into what we're studying together as a
Right.
body of believers and actually trust other people. So often we walk in and we're like, how are you? Oh, I'm great. How
Yeah,
are you?
yeah. Yeah,
That's what we
exactly.
do. And but really, no, I'm not okay.
Right. Yeah.
And there's people that maybe they haven't done anything, but maybe they're struggling with a sin. And I think that's important too with the men in the church. I think men should minister to men, and maybe women. You just have that more sense of freedom to talk about different things and to be able to discipleship one another. And I think that's what the Bible tells us to do. I think it's a very important part of our faith. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think that when the church is looking at maybe these positions to fill, they need to take that into consideration. And maybe even do that before you hire somebody. I'm not sure, just sit down and have an in-depth kind of,
Yeah.
where are you with the Lord? Like, really? Don't give me the Sunday school answer that, oh, everything's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at these numbers that you provided. It says only 36% of rapes, 34% of attempted rapes, and 26% of assaults are ever even reported. And that, I've been looking at this number here since you sent us these notes, and all of them are astounding, but this one is just, the fact that some people don't feel like they can come forward and say what happened to them. They don't feel like, probably a lot of times they don't feel like they'll be believed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And a lot of times they're not. And the victim often is treated as the source of shame, not the person who committed the act.
Yeah.
And so these numbers right here are really reflective of that, I think.
Yeah.
Which I think not just in the church either.
Oh, exactly.
You
yeah.
know, there are a lot of people out there who don't come forward with what has happened to them.
Yeah.
So
And I can understand the mindset that would go into not bringing it forward.
Right.
There was an instance at my church where this happened. Like there was abuse in the church. Not by an elder or anyone in authority, but in a family
Right.
that was at the church, and it shook everyone. Like there was not someone who understood what was going on that was not really affected by it. It changed a lot of things. So it's not, and I know. I think one of the things is too, like, church is not somewhere you should go to be comfortable,
No.
because in order to operate as the body of Christ, there's going to be a lot of discomfort, whether that's opening up to each other about sins in your life, struggles in your life, or even going to the church as a whole and saying, here's an issue.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of, and I would think of them as growing pains, even in sanctification as a body, walking with the Lord. It's very difficult. So and I think there's things that the church could do better.
Yes. I agree.
Because there's a reason why this is happening. A biblical church, and I say biblical church as if that's even exists, because there's no church that's perfectly biblical and perfectly walking with the Lord in the way it should. but something has happened. There are things that have snuck into the church that have set up this environment. And one of the things that we touched on very briefly in the end of the last segment was the way that our culture, and that includes, I would say, the American church, deals with intersex relations. So how women are viewed by men, and how we teach our children the role of women in the body and the role of women in society, and some of the lies that our culture has even fabricated. So how have you seen some of that play out? Or how? Yeah.
A lot you can put on her.
How much time we got?
Are we pulling out the
Are
soapbox?
you ready?
Because I could do that too.
Like, it's, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, I believe that there is a very biblical model for women in the church. You know, I believe that we should be submissive, and we should follow our husbands and all of that. And I do think that's very biblical. However, I do think that a lot of the time, women have good things to say.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that
I'm married to one.
yeah, there you go. You know, I think that the Lord has maybe given us, there's a lot of discernment. My mother she says she can, she has the gift of prophecy, she swears. But anyway, I just think that there's just different things that the Lord blesses us with. And I think women should have that opportunity to share what the Lord has taught them, what they're teaching them. But a lot of the times, I know in the church setting, maybe not even as in like a pastor position. I'm not talking like that, but I'm talking maybe a Sunday school, maybe a small group. Like, what I have to say is important. And we're taught, no, you're a girl. We need to let the men speak.
Yeah.
And I just, it hurts me.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that we're created in the Lord's image, and I believe that He has given us things to say, and silencing them is not going to help. And that's what happens a lot of the time too. If you think about this whole sexual abuse, is they think, oh, well, I'm supposed to be quiet. I'm not supposed to speak. It was a man. He's going to win.
Yeah.
And I think the church could do a better job at just helping women find their role in the church, but also even in society. We would have a lot less problems, I believe, if we kind of highlighted that.
I really like that you went into the silencing, because I agree 100%, and I've seen it a lot of times in various settings. I think the biblical model, everyone knows about Priscilla and Aquila.
Yeah.
And notice that Priscilla is mentioned first because Aquila seems to be maybe the follower in that relationship, which is not necessarily biblical, but it's just a reality. When they heard Apollos preaching, and he was a young man, a preacher, very zealous, had a lot of theological problems, but he was very passionate. And they heard that passion, and they heard his heart, but they knew that he was saying things that were not right. They, as a couple, and it seems to be instigated by Priscilla, went up to him, pulled him aside, and taught him the truth and what he should be saying. So women are never called to be silent. Now there is a model in the church that's reflected in the relationship between Christ and the church and the husband and the wife. There are those things, but as lay people in the congregation, women are active, always active, and should never be silenced by men. And we don't have time to go into all that. Maybe that's the subject for another episode.
Yes.
Let's do that. 100%. Let's do that. But we're going to continue this discussion in the next episode of Share Truth by Scripture next week. So please stay tuned for that, and we'll see you then.